Okay, thank you once again. This is a general biology course, which is Bio 1012. This course is prepared by Ethiopian Higher Education Institute as one of the new curricula, and this course is provided for almost all natural science freshman students, and the course contains around 10 chapters. Here you can see chapter 1 is about introduction of biology. Chapter 2 is about biological molecules. The chapter 3 is about the cellular basis of life. And the chapter 4 is about cellular metabolism and metabolic disorders. Chapter 5 is about genetics and evolution. Chapter 6 is about infectious diseases and immunity. The chapter 7 is about taxonomy of organisms, whereas chapter 8 is about ecology and conservation of natural resources. Chapter 9 is about introduction to botany and zoology, and the final chapter is about application of biological science. Therefore, based on this structure, I will try to prepare and release videos for each of these 10 chapters. So now we'll try to discuss chapter 1 in this video. In chapter 1, I'm going to discuss with you about introduction. Learning objectives are listed down in this slide. So at the end of this chapter, you will be able to define the term biology itself, understand scope and branches of biology, identify and describe nature and the characteristics of life, discuss different theories of origin of life, and understand scientific methods. These are some objectives that will be attained at the end of. Okay, chapter 1 is about introduction. Under introduction part, there are subtitles. 1.1, the meaning and the scope of biology. What is biology? The word biology is formed from two Greek words, bio and logy. Bio means life, whereas logy means study. So in general, biology can be defined as the study of life and the living organisms. So when life is defined, it can be defined as a condition that distinguishes living organisms from dead ones or from non-living matters. What are the nature and characteristics of life? There are conditions that help us to distinguish living from non-living organisms. One of these conditions is irritability. Irritability is the ability to detect stimulus and to respond it. For example, plants can bind toward a source of light, or they may respond to touch. Therefore, the light is stimulus, whereas binding towards light is response. This is response, whereas this is stimulus. Bacteria can move towards or away from chemicals. The process is known as chemotaxis. Therefore, chemicals are stimuli, whereas move towards or away from chemicals is a response. When we become warm, our body releases sweat on the skin surface. Therefore, warm is a stimulus, whereas releasing sweat is the response. So this is irritability. Hair growth and reproduction are other nature and characteristics of life. So growth is about increasing in size or increasing in number, because multicellular organisms can increase in their size, whereas microorganisms are increasing in number. Reproduction is about production of offsprings. Reproduction can be sexual or asexual, but the ultimate goal is production of offsprings. So we can say that reproduction can take place at cellular and organism level. Adaptability is another characteristic and nature of life. It is maintaining the internal condition or the internal body conditions, or it is about homeostasis, because organisms have internal body conditions. Their internal body conditions contains solutions. So their internal body solutions must be kept in constant state. And also the internal body condition contains temperature, body temperature. The body temperature of organisms also maintained at its constant rate. Similarly, organisms need constant pH value in their internal body. So these all conditions, solutions, the body temperature, as well as the pH value of internal body of organisms must be maintained at a constant rate. So this maintaining the internal body conditions of organism is known as adaptability. Therefore, adaptability is only seen in living matter, but not in non-living organisms. Okay, metabolism is another characteristic in the nature of life. This metabolism can be catabolism and anabolism, meaning metabolism can be divided into two parts, catabolism and anabolism. In catabolism, larger molecules are broken down into smaller ones. For example, respiration is a good example of catabolism. In anabolism, smaller molecules come together to make large molecules. For example, photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, for example, carbon dioxide is there. Carbon dioxide plus water. Water is there. And then, in the presence of sunlight, they give us carbohydrate, or they give us carbohydrate. Okay, another type of or nature and the characteristics of life is excretion. In excretion, waste products in the body are removed. This excretion helps organisms to maintain their internal body condition at a steady state. For excretion is very important for maintaining the internal body condition of organisms. All organisms can excrete. For example, plants can excrete. They release what? They release oxygen during photosynthesis process. Still, plants can release carbon dioxide during respiration. Of course, plants need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis process. However, plants can respire too. Therefore, they release the carbon dioxide as a waste product. And animals can release carbon dioxide as a waste product from their body. Urine contains many excretory products that are released out of the body through urea. These all are characteristics and the nature of life that is to distinguish or separate life from non-living matters. Finally, the most sophisticated form of life is man, because man contains three character or three nature. Man has a body, life of body or physical. Man has life of mind, and man has life of spirit. So man is very sophisticated, and the life of man is difficult to understand. The next subtitle of this chapter 1 is about branches of biology. Some branches of biology include, for example, anatomy. Anatomy is a branch of biology that studies about body structure of living organisms. The other type or the other branch of biology is bacteriology. It studies about bacteria. Biochemistry is another branch of biology which studies about chemical reactions in living organisms. By the way, chemical reactions can carried out in different environment, that means without living organisms. Chemical reaction can take place in the test tubes, or chemical reactions can be takes place in large tanks. But a chemical reaction which occurs in living organisms is studied under biochemistry. The other branch of biology is botany. It is study of plants. Cytology is another branch of biology which studies about structure, function, and chemistry of cells. It studies about structure, function, and the chemistry of cells. Dermatology studies about skin. Ecology studies about interaction between organisms and their environment, because organisms can interact with each other and organisms can interact with their surrounding environment for a number of purposes. For example, to get food, to get reproduction, to get gas, and even to release waste products. So organisms can interact to each other and with their surrounding environment. So such conditions are studied under a branch of biology called ecology. The other branch of biology is about epidemiology, which deals about the widespread of disease. Entomology is another type of another branch of biology which studies about insects. Etiology is another branch of biology which studies about animal behavior. Genetics studies about the process by which genetic information passed from parent to offspring. Microbiology, as the name indicates, it is a study of microorganisms. Pathology deals about disease caused by microorganisms, because disease may be caused by different reasons. However, diseases that are caused by microorganisms are studied under pathology. Physiology deals about how organisms function and how they carried out physical and chemical process. Taxonomy studies about groupings of living organisms. Virology studies about virus and virus-like agents such as prions. By the way, prions are not organisms, rather they are proteins, but in some reasons they may cause disease. So they can be studied under virology. Another branch of biology is zoology, which studies about animals. So these are some of branches of biology. Okay, this is another subtitle of the chapter, the origin and the nature of life. Where do you think life was originated? The secret of life's origin is still a big debating issue in science, but in religion it is already answered that God had made life, but in science still it is debating issue. According to science, evolution of life on Earth has evolved the following sequence of events. For example, first living things to appear where they were simplest, as well as they were single-celled organisms. From these simplest and single-celled organisms, more complex and multicellular organisms were evolved. So the first organisms that were appear on Earth was simplest and single-celled organisms according to science. Multicellular and more complex organisms were evolved from this simplest and single-cell organism. Let us identify between these simplest and single-cell organisms and more complex and multicellular organisms. These single-cell organisms are organisms, but still they are single cell. All activities of such organisms carried out in a single cell, and they can show all characteristics and the nature of life. They can reproduce, they can metabolize, they can respond for different stimuli, so they can show all characteristics in the nature of life. But these multicellular organisms are they are made up of many cells, as the name shows, multicellular organisms. So such organisms are constructed or made up of many cells, and also their cells are complex. In single-cell organisms, for example, the cells have no nucleus, and their organelles are not membranous. But in multicellular organisms, the cells have nucleus, as well as their organelles are surrounded by membranes. And also these multicellular organisms, cells in multicellular organisms are specialized cells, because in a level of organization, different cells are organized to make tissue, and similar tissues are organized to make organ. For example, in multicellular organisms, organs are made up of related and similar cells, because the cells that make our eyes are different from cells that make our heart, and they are different from cells that make our liver or other organs. Therefore, cells in multicellular organisms are specialized cells. They are specialized for special purpose. They are specialized for special tasks. For example, our nerve cells are specialized to carry out information. In general, these cells in multicellular organisms are many in number. They are complex in their nature, as well as they are specialized for a special purpose. This is a big difference between simple and single-cell organisms and multicellular organisms. However, science says that these multicellular organisms are evolved from simplest and single-cell organisms, which were evolved, originate or evolved in this earth for the first time. So, which is first? simplest and the single cell organisms are first, and these multicellular organisms are evolved from such organisms. Scientists generally agree that the time from the formation of solar system until now has been about 4.5 billion years. In other hands, creationists believe that world was created within 6 days by God by referring spiritual scriptures, whereas scientists utilize what they call scientific method, which allows them to test their hypotheses and to state theories, and they use this scientific method to develop concepts and ideas. Okay, several theories have been made to explain the mechanism of origin of life on Earth. Among these theories, spontaneous generation theory is one of them. This theory assumed or suggests that living organisms could arise suddenly and spontaneously from non-living matter, meaning non-living matters or non-living organisms can give rise to living organisms. For example, flies arise from rotten meat. Frogs were arise from mud. However, scientists like Louis Pasteur did different experiments to check this theory. However, they didn't find any life that arises from a non-living thing. Therefore, this theory was once and forever disproved completely. The second theory of origin of life is special creation theory. This theory states that all forms of life that occur today on planet Earth has been created by God Almighty. Especially spiritual scriptures can be used as a reference. The third one is catastrophism theory. This theory states that there have been several creations of life by God. This theory accepts that all forms of life has been created by God, but God creates all these forms of life several times. After God creates life, some catastrophe or geographical disturbance come and destroy such life. Therefore, lives been created several times by God according to this theory. Almost it is a modification of theory of special creation. Cosmosol theory or theory of panspermia is another type of theory of origin of life. This theory suggests that life has been reached in this planet Earth from other heavenly bodies such as meteoroids, especially in the form of highly resistant spores of different organisms. This theory was proposed by Richard and Archimedes. However, it doesn't have any support and evidences, therefore it is already discarded. Another theory of origin of life is chemical evolutionary theory, or it is known as materialistic theory or physiochemical theory. According to this theory, origin of life on Earth is a result of slow and gradual process of chemical evolution or chemical changes that occurred about around 4 billion years ago. It doesn't accept that non-living things give rise to living organisms, or it doesn't accept living organisms are created by God, or it doesn't accept life came from other heavenly bodies. Rather, this theory accepts that life is a result of chemical reactions. This theory was proposed by Oparin, Russian scientist, and Helden, who was English scientist. Scientific method is the last subtitle of this chapter. So this scientific method is a process for experimentation that is used to explore observations and answer for different questions. It means by using scientific method, we find different problems or different observations that needs different answers or different solutions. And it is also an experimental method that is used to acquire different knowledge. Using scientific method, we can get different knowledge, and it is also a technique that is used in the construction and testing of a scientific hypothesis. For this scientific method has steps. There are steps that are that must be followed in scientific method. The first step is make an observation, looking for a problem. Then after, once we have find the problem, we may ask question why such problems are happening. Therefore, the second step is ask question. Then after, we may found in our mind hypothesis, may hypothesize for such question. We may guess the problems, why such problems are happen in such. So it is the third step is form hypothesis. Then after, we carried out experiment to check our hypothesis either to be accepted or rejected. We have to do some experiment. After doing experiment, we will analyze our results. Then this is a fifth step, analyze the result. Then based on our result, we may accept or reject the hypothesis. Therefore, accept or reject the hypothesis is a sixth step. And the final step is draw conclusion and recommendation. Based on a result, we conclude and we may put recommendation. Recommendation may be two types. One type is to show a gap for other researchers to fulfill, to do some other experiments. Or the other type of recommendation is to recommend our result for others to use it. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the channel. Here in this slide there are summary questions, so you can do each.